Have one of those mornings where it feels like the universe wakes up dead set on testing every last ounce of patience you got left. Yeah, this was one of those. I'll never forget the sound of that bright orange notice slapping against my ranch gate, screaming trouble long before I could even read a single word. And let me tell you, nothing good ever rolls in on Carter Ridge dressed in neon. It's like the land itself knows when bad news is coming, and that day it came carrying a $360,000 fine, tacked up bold as brass, right where my family's been driving cattle since before most folks around here were even born. I'll be honest, I almost laughed when I saw Bethany Crowell's name scrawled at the bottom. HOA President. Like that title's supposed to mean something out here where the soil remembers who it belongs to. My barn, my old barn called non-compliant. My gravel road, suddenly unsafe. Even the foundation my dad poured by hand back in '54 was now architecturally disruptive. They had the gall to say my home was a hazard all because it didn't match the color palette of the latest subdivision down the road. All this from a committee that didn't even exist till the late '90s. But as I stood there with that violation notice flapping in the wind, something cold started to settle under my ribs. Not fear, no, I'm too old for that. But it was a gut feeling, and out here you learn to trust those. Especially when the next sound you hear is tires crunching up your driveway and you spot two county deputies rolling in like you're the one breaking the law. I squared my shoulders, met them out front. Hands where they could see voice steady habit from years in engineering and more than a few run-ins with folks who mistake paperwork for power. The older deputy, face hard as weathered fence posts, said, "Mr. Carter, we got a report from the Willow Ridge HOA Dangerous Structures Non-Compliance Refusal to Pay Fines." The younger one just kept staring at that orange paper like it was radioactive. I held it up between two fingers. This is a joke. But they weren't laughing. Then right on cue, Bethany herself rolled up in a shiny white SUV window, sliding down like she was the Queen of Montana. "You've ignored our notices, Mr. Carter. This is about community safety." I stared at her. "You're on Carter land, ma'am. HOA doesn't cross my fence line. Never has." She flashed that binder thicker than most Bibles and said, "Our updated boundaries include your parcel now." Approved unanimously. You ever see someone so sure they can bend reality to fit their agenda? That was Bethany. The cops were stuck caught between her binder and the history written into the dirt under their boots. That's when I realized this wasn't about some fine. It was about who owned what. And Bethany Crowell was betting she could bluff her way to the deed. She left with a warning, more notices coming. Deputies trailed off after her, and I stood in the wind, that orange paper in my hand, suddenly feeling like a starting pistol instead of a warning. Because deep down I knew someone had convinced the HOA they could just redraw lines on a map and own everything they wanted. Next morning I'm out walking the fence-line boots, breaking through frost mine spinning. I've dealt with regulators, survey crews, every flavor of government agency you can name. But never had I seen law enforcement called in because some HOA president wanted to play land baron. By mid-morning, the deputies were back. This time with clipboards reading off violations like they were prepping for a test they didn't want to fail. And with them Bethany again. This time she brought her own inspector, Marcus Crowell, her brother-in-law no less. He strutted around my barn in an orange vest, writing me up for everything from fence height to windmill noise. Community harmony, Bethany said, like she thought saying it 3 times would make my land hers. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about my gravel road or my barn. It was about access. Word got around thanks to Tom, a neighbor who knows how to listen before he talks. Bethany wants a direct road from Willow Ridge to the lake. Your ranch is in the way. Money talks, and in this case it was screaming. Pretty soon notices started stacking up on my gate like the world's most expensive deck of cards. Fines for the barn, for the fence, for runoff, for gravel, for existing. I could see how they thought this would end me too broke or too scared to fight, just another old-timer swept off his land by paperwork and polite threats. But they underestimated just how stubborn a Carter can be, and how much dirt a man can dig up, literally and legally, when he's backed into a corner. That's when Sarah Whitfield entered the story. Tom sent her my way, a land rights lawyer with a reputation for cutting through nonsense like a scythe through thistle. Together we dove into records, county deeds, old subdivision proposals, dam surveys going back to the '50s, That's where we found it, a forged map, a backdated approval stamp, the HOA's entire claim built on a development lease that expired in '91, long before they even existed. Turns out the developer never bought the land outright, just leased it. When they went bankrupt, everything was supposed to revert to the Carter estate, which meant all those fines, all those rules, all those threats, they were swinging sticks in someone else's yard. Even more damning, some files were missing, bankruptcy proceedings just vanished. Someone had tried to erase the past, but they forgot. Some of us never forget the shape of our own boundaries. Next step, track down Tom Bradley, the old surveyor who drew the original lines before anyone started playing fast and loose with the truth. Tom's hands still steady as he unrolled his maps, eyes flashing with the kind of anger you only get when someone tries to forge your signature. "That's not my map," he said. And with his records, we proved it. By then, the truth was heavy enough to bring to the sheriff. Morales, he didn't waste words. When he saw the forgery, the fake signatures, the reversion clause, you could see him calculating charges in his head. Fraud, tampering, misrepresentation. This wasn't a civil dispute anymore, it was criminal. Of course, the HOA tried one last time, showed up on my land with SUVs, bolt cutters, private security, the whole parade. But this time I wasn't alone. Sarah, Tom, Morales all standing there with real authority and original documents. When Bethany tried to bluster, Morales shut her down. "You forged a county approval stamp. You misled law enforcement. You trespassed." She went pale, her whole world built on borrowed power about to come crashing down. And that's exactly what happened. 2 days later, we walked into the Willow Ridge Community Center. Bethany tried to rally her people, blaming me for legal expenses and baseless claims. But when Morales presented the evidence, the real maps, the original deeds, Tom's affidavit, the crowd turned. You could see it on their faces. The board-fractured residents demanded answers, and the truth spilled out. The HOA had been built on sand. And Bethany, she'd bribed the county clerk to hide the bankruptcy files, all to keep her little empire intact. The law moved fast after that. The judge threw out the $360,000 in fines, dissolved the HOA, and recognized my family as the rightful landholders, not just for my ranch, but for every square foot the HOA claimed. Bethany and Marcus got escorted out in cuffs, facing charges that might just stick for once. And here's the thing, when the dust settled, it wasn't just about me winning back my land. It was about all those families scared and angry and uncertain, learning the ground under their feet wasn't a weapon to be used against them. It was a responsibility, mine, yes, but now protected by law, not lies. I offered the residents a choice: buy their lots at the original value or lease under terms set by the Carter Land Trust. Nobody lost their home. We just set the record straight. When the judge finalized it, you could feel the relief, people hugging laughing kids planning to paint their porches any damn color they wanted. Funny, isn't it, how sometimes justice doesn't roar. It just stands its ground, quiet, steady, unmovable as Carter Ridge itself. So let me ask you, where do you draw your line? What would you do if someone tried to rewrite your history just because they thought they could? If you've ever had to fight for what's yours, drop a justice in the comments. And if you think a man's land ought to mean something in this country, hit yes down below. Stick around, there's plenty more where the truth, grit, and a good old paper trail beat arrogance every single time.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.